Hey, it's Lee here. So today we're going to be doing a little beach house on the Bedlington Bay pre-existing boathouse lot. Don't really like the pre-existing boathouse. I mean, I find a lot of default builds aren't that attractive anyways, but this build took me about 7 minutes just to do the layout of, which actually isn't that bad, and I tried to do a combination of classic and modern sort of like classical furnishings to get that boathouse feel, but more of a modern top to it. You see, I put a sunroof on the top here. That's something I like doing with tiny houses. If I'm going to put a loft on it to put a second bedroom, I do like to have sunroofs. I really try to use the Get Famous columns, but I found that they just weren't working for this build, so I went for a much simpler column. You'll see in a minute when I put stairs, I don't properly column off that area in this video, but when it's up on the gallery, it will be fixed in terms of where the columns are, and there won't be an awkward gap anymore. I really do like this area in this map though, because it leads right up to a beach. It's kind of a weird lot. It's diagonal. It faces the road diagonally. I turned the lot around in this case and had it face the beach path, which made more sense to me, but when you place the lot, that does mean your Sims will have to go in technically what is the back of the lot, but I mean you can just rotate the lot if that really bothers you. I just thought it'd make more sense for it to be facing the beach. I usually play around with colors. I like to have colorful outside, not so much colorful roofs, but I think I looked at it this time. I try to do a more neutral outside. I thought this time maybe, I'd make up for the lack of the color in the landscaping and have some nicer, more colorful flowers. And now we're moving on to the interior. On the bottom floor, I put a bathroom and a kitchen slash living room, and the top floor is a bedroom with a office, a little tiny office in it. And I wanted to make this very light, have like a lot of windows without it having an unrealistic amount of windows. If it's on a beach, it's probably going to be stormy, so I don't know how inclined you would be to have glass that could break, like an extreme amount of glass. Although I don't live in an area that gets that kind of storm, so I don't have much personal experience with that. And I'm just gonna place some lights in there so I can actually see what I'm doing in the build, since the windows don't really provide that much light, and I had the time of day set to morning, so it was also kind of dark. I guess I could have changed that. And we're gonna put in some hardwood floor, and I carried the hardwood floor into the bathroom, which I don't usually do, but thought maybe I'd do it this time. I also tried out the cats and dogs wallpaper, which I hadn't used before. I try to avoid using too many stripes in my builds. I find they take up the entire room as the focus of the room. But I figured I'd do a build not entirely using base game and cats and dogs, but more focused on that because it has a lot of the little like nautical themed things in it. You will see in a few seconds I struggle with this bathroom. I want the sizing to be big enough for a sim to be able to use a sink, a toilet, and a shower, but not so big that it takes up a huge portion of the room. But I ended up having to settle on that size, and I just filled it with some cluttered items later. I want this house to be functional. I find that often houses that are tiny are not completely functional. They're always missing some integral part of it, and I get it. It's fun to see how much you can put necessities into a small space, but I want it to be small and functional so you can play in it and not have to worry about your Sims not being able to wash their hands in the sink or not being able to sit. That being said, this house does not have a dining room. Your Sims will have to eat on the couch, unfortunately, or up on their beds, or I do put a little bench outside if they want to. And this is just decorating the inside of the bathroom with some paintings, which I don't always do, but I wanted to make it feel really homey. And the house I grew up in, my mom had put actual paintings in the bathroom, which is kind of funny because we didn't really have them in the rest of the house, but we sure did in the bathroom. And I'm just cluttering it, putting some things on the counter, put a little shower caddy in there. I did not play test this, so if this shower caddy doesn't work, let me know. I won't do it again and we'll take it out. And now on to the kitchen, which is another thing that I struggle with the shape with, because again I want it to be practical, but I don't want it to take up more space than necessary, although it does take up probably the most space of any room in the house aside from maybe the bedroom. But I mean, the bedroom has basically an entire floor dedicated to it. using the cool kitchen stuff appliances because I really like the way they look because they're really simple and they're really plain. The oven ended up going beside the fridge, which I don't usually do because I don't particularly care for the look of it, and I find that that's not the case in any place I've ever lived in. And then we're going to move to the living room where I end up putting one of the bay window couches in there, even though there's no bay window in this house. I just think it's really cute with all the cushions, and it really did match the rest of the room and added a little bit more color to an otherwise neutral build. Put a little Lunar New Year plant in there. I took the envelopes off though because I didn't want the red in the build. And I used most of the color in this build and patterns, aside from the wallpaper, obviously come from rugs. Because I find that's an easy way to put more color into your build if you want. If you see there, I debated whether I wanted to have a cat eat on the counter or have a dog in this house, but I envisioned the owner of this place having a dog, so I placed a dog in there. A little dog bowl on the side for your dogs to eat at. They kind of an awkward place, I guess, but you work with what you got. I also did use these curtains for the first time, which I've never touched before because again, I don't like using stripes, but they really matched the wallpaper, and not many things do for a wallpaper like that, to be honest, unless you go plain, but I found that a lot of my furniture was very plain, so I thought maybe I would want patterns otherwise without it being too patterned. And you see now I'm going to clutter that little spot over there, put some dog food, and I believe I also put something up on the wall later to make it look less plain. The smoke detector, I ended up looking for a place for it. Thought I was going to leave it there, but no, ended up hiding it in a cabinet. I didn't use any special cabinets this time because again, I wanted to have a cottagey feel, and cottages usually aren't furnished super special if it's a rental cottage and not like say a cottage that someone owns. And I only ever went to rental cottages when I was younger. Yeah, see, the dog gets to eat beside the trash can, which not ideal, but also, you work with what you have. And one thing I do in a lot of my builds is I put a lot of plants out. Like I put these Get Famous plant boxes out, which are really cute and really do match the blue theme that I have on the inside. It carries it to the outside. And I do fix this later, but I should have been working from more angles on this bottom floor. You'll notice that everything in the bottom floor is basically facing one direction. I try to remedy that a little bit later and hide it. Now these are really expensive paintings to just throw up on a wall and make them tiny, but I really like them. Most of the expense in this house comes from the decorations because it's so heavily decorated. I believe the house comes in around 45,000 simoleons. So if you don't want to use a money cheat or move an established sim in, you can probably severely reduce the cost of this by, well, one, obviously unfurnishing the whole thing, or two, getting rid of a lot of these expensive paintings and such that I put in. I mean, I tend to cheat sims into houses just so I can make them look pretty because I really hate moving sims into ugly little houses. And there's a little pastry thing. I made it with tiny pastries. And I put this woven carpet in, which I really do like the woven carpets. I also like that it was a darker blue, so it didn't blend into the walls too much. I tried and failed to put the umbrella stand. If you want the umbrella stand, there's probably a good place for it, but I just could not place it at the time, so I left it. And I put in a coat rack and a little dog leash hanger. So you can grab your coat, you grab your hat, grab your dog leash, and take your dog for a walk on the beach. I ended up putting a wreath above the door, which I've never done before because I tend to avoid the permanent holiday items. I don't really like them aside from the wreaths because I find there's just too much work for something that stays up for such a little time in a Sims house. Now this one was odd. I do change that little desk to a bright blue color, which I thought was really cute and a little bit more fun, and it matches the blue and it accents in the wallpaper. And I kept it a small desk, like the teen writing desk that comes from Parenthood. That way I could put a bookshelf in there because I find if you don't have a lot of space, you want your Sims to have a computer and a bookshelf so they can build their skills without having to either travel all the time or buy a million items that don't fit in the house anyways. And again, I put some patterned carpet in there so there's a little bit more interest in the room. I tend to put a rug anywhere that I see Sims frequenting, so bedrooms, showers, a computer desk, kitchen sometimes depending if I'm putting tile. You don't really want rug under tile. And that's about it for the office room. I put a little clock in there, but it's pretty simple. It's just more meant for function than it is for anything else. Although here I am trying to clutter the table. I don't even know why I tried. Obviously nothing's gonna fit on there. And moving to the bedroom, I have a really big bias for canopy beds. I always use that bed and the child bed in almost all of my builds. I know it's stupidly expensive, but I think it's really cute and it has the discomfort relief bonus, which the more expensive beds do. That way you don't have to worry about your Sims getting the uncomfortable moodlet. I put a dog bed there. You can't really access the dresser if the dog's sleeping, but you don't really have to access the dresser. You can just change by clicking your sim. The dresser's just kind of pretty. Putting some clutter on the nightstand, putting a pile of laundry on the floor. I kept the dog theme going. You notice I have the dog bath mat and I have the dog statue. And it's more just trying to make this house look lived in than anything else at this point. I tried several different things to clutter this little area here. I ended up going with the I think it's the pupulent planter, pupulent succulent. I don't know. I really like that cat and dog one. I was really determined to get these cards into this build. I don't know why, but I tried in several different areas to fit these cards in that honestly don't even make sense with one person who doesn't have a kid for me to have picked the ones that look like they were drawn by kids. I guess I just thought they were cute. Now we're going to move on to decorating the walls. I really like these architecture prints aside from the form drawing ones that you get from the artist's career. They're my favorite wall decorations. Again, there's really expensive decorations, so you can just take that off if you don't want it. And I move on to just basically more clutter in this room. I think the more cluttered a space looks, the more realistic it looks. Because it looks like someone's living in it rather than someone's just, staying there. And I really like putting paintings on the walls. I'm the kind of person who has a lot of stuff on her walls in real life. Like, I just clutter my own walls. And again, a carpet with a small pattern on it so I can add some color to this room. And it's a little more interest because it has plain walls as opposed to the rest of it. Here I am trying to make it look like this kitchen is slightly separated from everything else. And I put a little half wall there. I actually, looking back on it, I don't know how I feel about that now. I feel like maybe it closes the space off too much, but you could always take that off if you don't like it. I mean, I don't hate it, I just think maybe that was a little bit of a bad choice. And I believe now we're going to move on to landscaping. Yes, see, you can see I missed one corner of a column there. That's what I was talking about earlier. It is fixed when it's up on the gallery, but for whatever reason, I missed one corner. And we're going to move on to the outside and landscaping. I did put some ivy up on the wall because I felt that the wall was a little bit bare. And I really like the vampire lush ivy. I'm not so crazy about the dead ivy or the really sparse ivy. But I really like the lush ivy that came with the thing. And then I used my favorite mailbox with the blue door to carry out the blue from the outside. 2 garbage cans. Not sure why I put 2. I think it was more of a space filler, and then we grabbed the dog toy bin so you can put some toys out for your dog. Did not put any agility things out. Figured that if you want your dog to do agility, you can just place those objects yourself. I don't do agility with my dogs, I just kind of have them living in my house. So I've never really explored that skill. I put all 3 of the trees given to us in the cats and dogs pack. And I do put a cute little bench underneath the dogwood tree because I thought it'd be a nice little reading space and extra sitting space because there's not much in the house. And then that grass coming out of the bushes is something that my mother always did when I was a kid, so I thought, I don't know, that reminds me of home. That's cute. And we put some hedges to guide off the path, and I had to move the mailbox because I didn't think about the mailbox placement. Ain't that just the way? Alright, and we'll put some flowers underneath the hedges. That way it looks a little more natural, a little more grown in, less like they were, obviously they're put there, they're square, but a little bit less so. Wildflowers under the windows because they match the window boxes. And I am going to, yep, there's the little bench, and I'm going to do some dirt patterns underneath all of the stuff after I'm done with the planter boxes to further the look of something being placed there intentionally and growing there naturally, but also being taken care of. Yeah, there I am putting it underneath all the trees. It's not as visible under that tree and underneath there. And then I realized I made a mistake. You cannot get to the loft path with the way that I did it without going off the lot and going around. So I had to build a path. And then I had to try to hide the fact that I had built that path and I had messed up to make it look like, oh, well, I didn't forget. That's what the path's supposed to be. I did debate adding some flowers back here, but decided against it. Decided to just keep it wooded and then just a simple path, and I just added a couple rocks under that tree. And we're approaching the end of the video, so if you want this house, it is on the gallery under the hashtag probablylee, and I believe it's called Tiny Boathouse. Alright, and we're gonna go into screenshots in a few seconds, so thanks for watching.